Hi there, and welcome to The Daily Gardener, an almanac of garden history, literature, and small botanical joys. I'm Jennifer Ebling, and today is March 24th. Today is about the work behind the beauty. A plant hunter paddling inland in a cypress canoe, a designer who invented the original before and after, a houseplant columnist who sounds like your smartest friend, and an artist who let the birds steal the strawberries and called it inspiration. Here's today's garden history. It was on this day in 1683 that the English naturalist, artist, and explorer Mark Catesby was born. Mark's work quietly reshaped how gardens on both sides of the Atlantic would look. Mark helped to close the gap between North American botany and English landscape design. The magnolias, catalpas, flowering dogwoods, and mountain laurels. Plants that feel familiar today didn't simply appear in European gardens. Someone had to go get them. Mark traveled through the American South, from the Carolinas down through Florida and into the Bahamas, often by cypress canoe, working alongside native guides. Mark collected seeds, specimens, and observations, and he sent them back to England to friends like Peter Collinson. But Mark wasn't just drawing plants. He was showing how life fits together. He became the first naturalist to consistently illustrate animals with the plants they depended on. Birds feeding, frogs sheltering, ecosystems intact. And in that way, he stands alongside Maria Sibylla Merian as a founder of ecological illustration. Mark had favorites. He loved male birds for their brighter plumage, and he was endlessly fascinated by the American bullfrog, whose call, he wrote, sounded like a bull bellowing from a quarter-mile away. In Virginia, Mark noted that locals believed bullfrogs kept spring water pure, and so they were protected, never harmed. And then there were the passenger pigeons. Mark witnessed them firsthand. 3 days of continuous flight. The sky filled with birds, so dense there was no break in their passing. Those skies are silent now, but because of Mark Catesby, we still know what they once held. Mark's work was trusted by Carl Linnaeus, relied upon for naming and classification, foundational for generations of plant hunters who followed. Mud on his boots, paint on his hands. Mark Catesby. His wonder was always intact. And it was on this day in 1818 that the English landscape gardener Humphry Repton died. Humphry bridged the grand parklands of the 18th century and the flower-rich gardens that followed. And Humphry was the first to call himself a landscape gardener. Humphry understood something many clients didn't yet know. People struggle to imagine change. So Humphry invented a solution. His famous red books, leather-bound volumes with watercolor flaps that allowed clients to lift a page and see the after laid directly over the before. It was the original garden reveal, the thing we still regret forgetting to do. Take the picture first before you start to change anything in the garden. Humphry also reintroduced flower gardens near the house, terraces, gravel walks, and ornamental planting. A softened transition from architecture to landscape. And then there was his quiet ecological insight. The thorn is the mother of the oak. Humphry observed that thorny scrub protected young trees from grazing animals, allowing forests to regenerate naturally. Today, that principle sits at the heart of rewilding. But back then, it was simply careful observation. Humphry taught gardeners how to see, and how to help others see too. In today's Unearthed Words, we hear a newspaper garden column from a houseplant writer known as Fern Leaf, published on this day in 1877. Her work appeared in the Chicago Tribune in the home section in a city dense with flats, windowsills, and parlor plants. You can feel Fern Leaf's competence right away. She moves briskly through letters about houseplants. She's firm, kind, and practical, and has the voice of someone who has learned by doing. Fern Leaf reminds readers that plants, like people, need rest, that forcing blooms year-round comes at a cost, and then gently, the column turns. One chair at the home is vacant now, she writes. A fellow contributor to the newspaper has died. Fern imagines placing bright blossoms on her grave, flowers that had brought them together in print, now offered in memory. She signs off her column simply, "More anon," and you can almost hear the page's regular readers, this close-knit circle of correspondents, answering back from kitchens and parlors all over the city. Yes, please, tell us more. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Mary Hall by Beverly Nichols. It's Beverly Nichols Week here on The Daily Gardener, which means all of the book recommendations for this week feature books by Beverly Nichols with his distinctive garden voice. He's witty, observant, and unapologetically in love with beauty. In Mary Hall, Beverly tells the story of taking on a ruined Georgian manor and its 5-acre garden in post-war England. It's a story about restoration, land, buildings, and spirit. Along the way, Beverly introduces one of his most memorable creations, Oldfield, the curmudgeonly gardener who worked for the previous owners and has very strong opinions about how things ought to be done. This book is funny, it's snarky, there's warmth beneath the wit, and underneath it all is something true. A garden changes your inner life, whether you realize it or not. And finally, here's something sweet to ignite the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day in 1834 that the English artist, poet, and designer William Morris was born. For William, the garden was refuge, a place of solace after heartbreak, a place where attention softened into care. At Kelmscott Manor in rural Oxfordshire, England, William netted his strawberries to protect them from the birds. The thrushes slipped underneath anyway, but instead of driving them off, he fell in love with them, their cleverness, their joy. They inspired his most famous design, Strawberry Thief, a dense tangle of leafy vines, ripe fruit, and watchful birds caught mid-mischief. William actually forbade his gardeners from harming them. Their pleasure, he decided, was worth more than the harvest. As we close the show today, remember, some gardeners carry seeds across oceans. Some lift flaps so others can see the future. Some answer letters. Some give everything away. Most do their work quietly, and the garden remembers them all. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.